So, good evening, buenas tardes. Thank you all for joining us. As we're starting to go back to normal. I hope that next time we see each other is in person. I want to start thanking Councilman Chad West for the invitation. I know that he's still working in the City of Dallas Council meeting. So thank you to him and the City of Dallas Public Works Department. Thank you, Ms. Chris Turner, for your leadership and obviously for leading this meeting today. I also want to recognize some of the Dallas County Public Works Department personnel. Our director, Ms. Alberta Blair, Dallas County Public Works Director, and Mr. Tushar Solansky, which are also with us in the meeting. And of course, my chief of staff, Mr. Brooks Love, which is also joining us. Thank you all for the hard work, all your hard work making this presentation. I know that as a member of the community of North Oak Cliff, we are excited to see this part and this project going, long time coming. So please, we're ready to hear your input. That is the most important part, the community input and the engagement and the direction that you're going to give us tonight. So with that, Ms. Turner, I will give the microphone to you so you can give us some of the instructions about microphones and all that kind of good stuff, how we're going to communicate that input and those questions and how we will answer. So again, thank you all for being here with us tonight, and I look forward to hear your input.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Garcia, and thank you for opening the meeting. As Dr. Garcia mentioned, Councilman West is tied up still in the council meeting, so he's not going to be able to join us tonight. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Garcia, for opening the meeting for us. Haitham, can you bring up the presentation for us? And for anyone who's not aware, Microsoft Teams made a change in the last couple of days. So it's kind of a little bit interesting to try and display things lately, because it has a tendency to want to display your whole screen as opposed to just what you're trying to open. I had this happen to me earlier today as well. There we go.
There you are.
So I'm going to turn my camera off because I sometimes do have bandwidth issues, so I don't want to lose anybody on the call. So I'm going to turn my camera off. But I do want to go through a few additional introductions if I could. We have members here from City of Dallas Public Works staff. First of all, I am Chris Turner Noteware. I am the city engineer and assistant director in the Department of Public Works. We also have our director here. So Robert, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Robert Bettis, Director of Public Works at the City of Dallas.
Haitham Hassan. Who is one of my assistant city engineers. We also have Dia Tomey, who is the project manager on the project.
Good evening, I'm Dia Tomey, the project manager from Public Works Department.
We also have members of our transportation department here. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves as I call your name, Catherine.
Thanks, Chris. This is Catherine Rush. I'm the chief planner in the Department of Transportation.
Kim.
I'm Kimberly Smith. I'm the senior transportation planner in the Department of Transportation. I regulate the thoroughfare plan.
And Jessica.
Hello, my name is Jessica Scott, and I'm the bicycle mobility manager in transportation.
And then I did miss one of our public works folks, Ryan, probably one of our most important because he helps me actually run this thing.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ryan Wagner, PR coordinator for Public Works. And yes, I'll be watching the chat and running the Q&A after the presentation.
And then I do believe there is an additional Dallas County staff online as well. Noe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Noé Villarreal, Dallas County Public Works Transportation Engineer.
Okay, I believe I've gotten all staff, but if there's anyone else on staff that I missed, please take this opportunity to introduce yourself. Okay, with that, can we go to the next slide, please? So I just do want to let you know that we are recording this meeting, and instead of a sign-in sheet, we're recording everyone's name that we can see for the official meeting record. I don't believe we have anyone online that has just called in, so we will be able to get the official meeting record off of the attendance list tonight. So thank you for that. If you can please submit all of your questions and comments via the chat. Questions will be reviewed by our team and a response will be prepared for the end of the presentation. If a more detailed response is required, it will be responded to within 30 days. And if you have called into this meeting and wish to submit questions, you can email them to kimberly.smith@dallascityhall.com. So as far as our agenda today, we're going to go through the project information. I'm going to talk with you about the public engagement round 1 from the meeting we held in fall of 2020. We'll talk about the feedback on our proposed improvement options, the recommended improvements, responses to public meeting questions that we had from that fall of 2020 meeting. We'll talk about the Davis Street project phasing, the staff recommendations, how you provide your input to us from this meeting, the next steps in the project, and then the contact information for the project. So the project area is Oak Cliff, and the limits of the project on Davis Street are between Cockrell Hill and Clinton Avenue, as you can see on the map that's displayed here. We do have quite a few projects that have been ongoing on Davis Street. So just to show you the relationship of those projects, basically this project is a bond project in partnership with Dallas County. And we also have a 2012 bond project that was a complete streets project, which added sidewalks, on-street parking, and lighting improvements. And that construction was completed in 2020. And you can see that was between Clinton and Beckley, and that's that dark blue box that you see there. And we also do have a 2017 bond project for street reconstruction, which is shown on the right end of the map, which is between Beckley and Patton. It is a reconstruction project, as I said. The design is estimated to be complete in fall of 2021, and construction is estimated to be complete in winter of 2023. So just as an overview of the project, the City of Dallas bond dollars and the Dallas County Major Capital Improvement Program, as we refer to the MCIP, will be funding the reconstruction of Davis Street with bicycle facilities between Cockrell Hill Road and Clinton Avenue. The project right now is currently in the conceptual planning phase, and what this includes is defining the project goals, identifying any issues or opportunities, evaluating the alternatives, and determining the horizontal roadway layout, which basically consists of the number of lanes and sidewalk widths and those type of things, and doing the schematic plans for the project. So this conceptual planning phase will help prioritize the order for specific segments to be improved within the corridor, since the entire corridor is not able to be improved at one time. So as I mentioned, the project is currently in the scoping and conceptual planning phase, where we're evaluating the existing conditions and developing improvement options for both the 100-foot wide right-of-way and 60-foot right-of-way sections, along with determining how to accommodate bicyclists along the route. We have had one public engagement meeting in September of 2020, where we shared project information and collected input on the project goals, the needs, and the preferred options. We've used that input along with planning and engineering judgment to determine the recommended improvements that we're presenting to you tonight. And this is our public engagement round 2 meeting, where we're soliciting your public input on these recommendations. And we will then determine the scope for the project and develop a phasing plan for the improvements. So just to talk a little bit about the public engagement that was done in round 1, between September and November of 2020, we did conduct a survey along the corridor, and we did hold a virtual public meeting on September 29th of 2020. For that virtual public meeting, we mailed 1,377 notices and 28 people attended. That meeting did provide a project overview. We discussed the existing conditions along the corridor and the proposed typical section options, and provided information regarding where to locate the Davis Study Survey online. So the survey itself was open September 14th of 2020 through November 5th of 2020. It was advertised via mail-outs, the virtual public meeting, and by dropping off flyers to businesses along the corridor. We received 210 total responses on the survey. 203 of them were in English and 7 were in Spanish. And some of our top responses to the questions that we asked, such as what people like about Davis Street, they really like that it's a mixed-use street, which means that we have both commercial and we have residential and a lot of other uses along the roadway. Folks indicated that the top goals for the project should be to improve walkability and improve safety. And additional improvements that were desired along Davis Street are landscaping. So in discussing the feedback on the proposed improvement options, I'd like to remind you that the corridor was divided into 2 sections. And section A, which is shown in red on this graphic on the left side, is from Cockrell Hill to Mary Cliff, and it has a 100-foot wide right-of-way. And section B, which is shown in green on the graphic on the right side, is from Mary Cliff to Clinton, and this has a 60-foot wide right-of-way. And 3 different options were presented for each section at the last meeting. So looking at section A, the 100-foot wide right-of-way improvement options, we presented 3 options as shown here. The first option had a shared use path on both sides of the roadway. The second option included bike lanes and sidewalks. And the third option included a shared use path on one side and parking on the other side. Bicyclists are being accommodated in these options either through on-street in a dedicated bike lane or through the use of continuous sidewalks and or shared use paths. So as you can see from the pie chart given to the right on this slide, 12% of the survey respondents preferred option A3, which included the shared use path and on-street parking. 20% preferred option A1 with the shared use pathways on both sides of the roadway. And 68% preferred option 2, which is what is shown here with the on-street bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. Bicyclists will be accommodated on-street in dedicated bike lanes, and continuous sidewalks are being provided for other multimodal users. Staff was approached and asked to consider extending the 3-lane configuration, which is being considered between Mary Cliff to Clinton, and extending that west to Hampton Road. To address that request, we've developed the following 2 options. However, they will need to be studied further. So the first alternative option, H1, would include 1 travel lane in each direction, a center left turn lane, parking on both sides of the roadway, off-street directional bike lanes, and wide sidewalks as shown above. And this section we're talking about, again, is between Mary Cliff and Hampton. It's this yellow section that's highlighted on the bottom here. And then the second alternative option, H2, would include, again, 1 travel lane in each direction, a center left turn lane. It would only have parking on one side of the roadway. It would have off-street directional bike lanes and wide sidewalks as shown above. So the main differences between option H1 and H2 are the parking on only one side of the roadway in H2, which allows for a wider median between the road and bike lanes, wider landscape buffers, and a wider sidewalk. So looking at the 60-foot wide section above, between Mary Cliff and Clinton, 3 options were presented. Option 1 had bike lanes on the street along with continuous sidewalks. Option 2 had parking allowed on one side of the road with continuous sidewalks, and bike lanes are diverted to 7th Street, which we'll talk about in a moment. And option 3 had parking on both sides of the street, and the sidewalk would be very limited and possibly not continuous. So again, as you can see from the pie chart on the right side of this slide, 12% of the respondents preferred option 3 with parking on both sides of the roadway. 19% preferred option 2 with parking on one side with continuous sidewalks. And 69% of the respondents preferred option B1 with on-street bike lanes and continuous sidewalks, which is what is shown above. We do have some concerns with the survey provided improvement option. We do have an issue with some consistency to the east because Davis Street between Clinton Avenue and Zhang Boulevard was built as a two travel lanes, a center turn lane with improved sidewalks and on-street parking, and does not have bike lanes. So if we put on-street bike lanes in the section that we're talking about here, basically we will not have consistency as we continue further on the route. This would also remove all on-street parking in the city right away, and thus depriving the older businesses in there of having customer parking because they do not have off-street parking right now. This retains the narrow sidewalks and it provides minimal walkability improvements in this area. 7th Street in this area is also on the bike plan, and 7th Street is just south of Davis in this area. 7th Street at Rosemont is actually closed for Acorn Plaza. And as I just mentioned, 7th Street is parallel to Davis Street and does have north-south connections each block. So what staff did is we came up with an option B2, again, which will provide parking on one side and a bicycle boulevard on 7th Street. And what this does is it has benefits because it will allow us to widen the sidewalks to 7 feet for a much more comfortable walking environment. It will retain on-street parking on one side of the road for the retail parking for those businesses that have been there so long. It's consistent with the design of Davis east of Clinton, so we don't have discrepancies in those designs and those sections. And it also provides a bike facility on 7th Street, which is consistent with the Dallas Bike Plan. And as you can see on this is our bike network in the area and what is shown on the bicycle plan. So Davis Street is in the 2011 bike plan as an on-street facility that connects to several existing and proposed bike lanes and trails. But as you can also see, 7th Street itself is also on the bike plan, and it is a much less car-traveled route than Davis Street and does provide us an opportunity to be able to provide a nice bike network. So what we would like to do in proposing for 7th Street Bicycle Boulevard and Greenway is we would enhance the Rosemont intersection, which is shown here. And this is the 7th Street area that if a bicycle facility is moved, we would improve this and add sharrows to 7th Street. We would paint a new crosswalk and we would put additional signage for the cyclist. So shown here would be an alternative configuration along 7th Street to continue the bike connectivity, which would include two 15-foot sharrowed bike lanes and 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. As I indicated, it would include sharrowed street markings along with speed bumps and/or other speed management devices along with wayfinding signs. As you can see on the slide, there's an example of a sharrowed bike lane with a speed bump from Portland, Oregon. So this could look something similar to that. And there's also an example of a well-marked crosswalk with other speed management devices depicted. And again, something similar could be done at Rosemont and some of the intersections along 7th Street. So I want you to make sure you kind of keep that in mind as you're going through the survey and those type of things and that option on 7th Street. So we did have some questions that came up from the first round of public engagement several times, so we wanted to be sure and address these. So one of the first questions was what type of bike lanes would be installed? And the answer is it really depends on the location. In the location where we have room, we would have a 2-foot buffer with possible vertical elements. to separate the bike lane from the travel lanes. And if there's not a dedicated lane, we would have sharrows as we talked about on 7th Street. And the second question was, why are the Davis Street bike lanes being proposed to continue on 7th Street? And this is what we were just talking about, is that the width of the roadway and the right-of-way allows for separated bike infrastructure west of Mary Cliff on Davis Street. But east of Mary Cliff, we don't have room to continue those bike lanes, and 7th Street would really be a safer option for the cyclists to connect to their destinations. The third question we had is if any of the options would require land acquisitions. And we don't anticipate any land acquisitions. However, if needed, we will work with the individual landowners because we do understand there are lots of landowners along this stretch of Davis. And we know that we'll have to deal with them on an individual basis if we have any issues with that. The fourth question is, would damaged sidewalks be fixed? And this is a full reconstruction project, so all sidewalks will be installed. And the last question we had was, why are the medians 15 feet wide? And the medians are 15 foot wide to accommodate turn lanes and then possible planting areas. So we just wanted to make sure that some of those questions that we got several times that we addressed in this meeting. And at this point, the proposed project phasing would be to proceed from the east to the west to continue building from where the improvements currently exist. And it's proposed that the project be phased into 3 segments. Segment 1 would be from Hampton Road to Clinton Avenue, which is shown in green above. Segment 2 would be from Westmoreland to Hampton Road, which is shown in yellow above. And segment 3 would be from Cockrell Hill Road to Westmoreland Road, which is shown in the purple above. And then just looking at the estimated cost of the project, segment 1, which is again is in green to the right of the roadway. And it's estimated to be approximately $13.5 million. And segment 2, which is in the yellow in the middle there between Westmoreland and Hampton, is estimated to be approximately $19.9 million. And then segment 3 between Cockrell Hill and Westmoreland to the left side is estimated to be approximately $20.4 million. So staff's proposed recommendations are shown above. For the 100-foot wide right-of-way section between Cockrell Hill and Mary Cliff, we recommend option A2, which has parking on both sides along with an on-street bike lanes and continuous sidewalks. For the 60-foot wide right-of-way section between Mary Cliff and Clinton, we recommend option B2, which has parking proposed on one side of the roadway, along with sidewalks on both sides. And we also have a proposed B2 section that would create the 7th Street Bicycle Boulevard and Greenway, which would take the bicyclists off Davis Street starting at Rosemont and be consistent with the bicycle plan. So we do need your input. First of all, we'd like to know if you support the staff recommendations that were presented above. Second thing, would you like staff to study the 3-lane cross section that was discussed between Mary Cliff and Hampton Road? And do you have any questions for staff regarding those proposed cross sections? So there is a QR code shown here so that you can actually hit that QR code, right now, and it will take you directly to the survey. And there is also the survey link given there, the http://bit.ly Davis survey 2. This survey was created in Microsoft Forms, so you're able to choose your language, either English or Spanish, when you get into the survey. So that is why we do not have 2 survey links, because you're able to choose your language on the survey. But please make sure and go do the survey because we do need your input. That's the main purpose of why we do these meetings, is to ensure that we get our constituents' input on what it is you would like to see. Because these roadways and the improvements that we make impact you. And we want to ensure that we are getting your input and doing what it is you would like to see in your neighborhood. So the next steps, basically, we will finalize the recommendations and phasing plan. We will amend the thoroughfare plan. And if you receive notification for either of the virtual public meetings, you will also receive notification for the thoroughfare plan amendment. We will go through design and engineering, which will be approximately 12 to 18 months per segment. And then we will go to construction, which is approximately 18 to 24 months per segment. I also do want to mention that we have been coordinating with the West Oak Cliff Area Plan. This effort began in 2020 at the request of Councilmember West and is slated to be completed by the end of 2021. This plan is working to establish a long-range land use and development a development vision for the areas shown in the map to the right. And this will also help identify other planning issues related to streets, parks, and other issues. There was an area-wide meeting held on April 27th, and the West Davis area meeting was held on May 10th. So there's more info that can be found regarding this plan at the link that's given here. But we just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we know how important Davis Street is, and we know how important the Oak Cliff area is. So we're making sure that we are coordinating with everything that's going on in the area to make sure that we do the best for Davis Street and the area. And with that, our contact information, Dia Tomey, again, is the Public Works Project Manager, and she can be reached at dia.tomey@dallascityhall.com. And our transportation contact is Kimberly Smith, and her email is kimberly.smith@dallascityhall.com. And with that, we will open it up for any questions you may have.
All right, everyone. So just wanted to let you know, if you are interested in asking questions about the presentation and you'd like to ask them in the chat, you can also type them there. And additionally, how this will work, just for the sake of everyone's time, we'll go down the list. If you want to ask a question or make a comment and you're on desktop, you can use the raise hand feature that shows, you should see a little smiley face with the hand up that you can raise or lower your hand. That will indicate who's up next to speak. And again, you can also put questions in the chat, and we'll go through the chat and read those out loud so that staff can respond as well. Okay, Barbara, I see that you're unmuted. Would you like to get us started off with a question or comment?
Well, I'm amazed at all the plans that have been done, and I'm very, very concerned about the part of West Davis between Hampton and Westmoreland, because that is contiguous to my neighborhood association. And what you see there right now is pitiful. So improvements will be very welcome. The street's in very horrible shape. The sidewalks are sometimes not there. A number of the businesses along that section of West Davis are in very poor condition. I'm hoping that the improvements in the paving will mean that the buildings will be encouraged to improve also. These are old neighborhoods that are abutting West Davis, and these are, for the most part, middle to working class neighborhoods on both sides. And these residents are often ignored. So I'll be very pleased to see that their ideas and also their desires are looked at. I would appreciate that a lot. And bravo, we've waited a long time for this. And like I said, these are old neighborhoods. My neighborhood started in 1914. So we've been waiting a long time for Davis to be improved. So this is going to be a wonderful thing for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Oh, and to answer your question, Joseph, which is, was this recorded and will it be made available for download? The answer is yes. We've been recording since the beginning of the meeting. And so once we conclude, it will be uploaded to the City of Dallas YouTube page. So that's where the recording will be accessible, but I will also plan to share that with the local neighborhood next door as well as the presentation, any other materials, so that folks can access the survey, access the recording of the meeting. So for those who weren't able to attend, they can still watch it. Oh, I see your hand is raised, so you can go ahead and unmute and ask your questions or make your comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. The question I have, and you guys are going to have to correct me on some of the details. Is it PD 830 with all the sub-districts that go along the Davis corridor into the Bishop Arts area? Is that PD 830 or something similar? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I'm going to refer to one of my other staff members and see if they happen to know which PD this is within.
Yeah, there's multiple sub-districts all along that Davis corridor. And I think when all those PDs were put into motion, one of the overarching themes of those PD was to foster, sort of a pedestrian-centric design. And there was a lot of detail in those PDs that talked about, curb cuts, the length, the width of a curb cut, all the things that that would be obvious with respect to making it pedestrian friendly. I forget what they're called. Is it the aprons or the shoulders or something where driveways reach the curb so that the sidewalks become sort of uninterrupted, even with the driveway. Aprons or something like that. That may make sense to you. I can't remember the terminology. But where this question is going is, was this design at any point sort of examined with PD? I think it's 830. I may be off, but was this sort of reviewed to see that they synchronize with respect to all those points that are listed in the existing PDs?
Mm.
This is Kimberly Smith. We will be working with current planning to ensure that we do meet a lot of those. However, due to how the thoroughfare plan is regulated and the process, recently we added text to our Article 8 stating that any modifications through the complete streets process, which this would be that, on thoroughfare plan roadways, the thoroughfare plan would regulate the right of way. So outside of the right of way, the PD would still be, would regulate the private development. However, the roadway would be regulated by the thoroughfare.
Okay. So it would not be impossible, though, to work on a thoroughfare design that was, sort of sympathetic to some of the principles that were the drivers behind that PD ordinance from however long ago that was made an official reg, right?
That is correct. We will look into that to enhance especially the pedestrian realm. So that would include any of the driveway aprons, and that's what you were referring to as far as the curb cuts were located. So when you drive into like a driveway or a parking lot, things of that kind of area. So we will look into that to ensure that we are being compliant with all of those locations too. Because I'm looking at the development map right now, and it looks like we're covering many PDs. It's majority of our area is under PD 631. The Bishop Arts is 830. And I mean, so there's so many in this area. So we will look at all of those and ensure that we are complying with the intent of those two.
But that Davis corridor, I think, is one dominant PD that has several sub-districts, and they're, all the way from Westmoreland into kind of the Bishop Arts area. Yeah, if you guys, and the reason I bring this up is I was recently involved with, sort of, keeping an eye on the David Weekley development just west of Hampton on Davis. And, they were asking to change some of the PD requirements for that development. And a lot of the pedestrian driven items were sort of thrown out the window. And it just, it's kind of frustrating to see this over time where people work so hard to establish these PDs that are acceptable to the community at the time. And then something like a roadway design could come in and, completely usurp it. Because as you said, it sort of trumps the PD, right? So if we could just ensure that the design is done in a way that's sympathetic to the existing PDs would be great.
I will personally look into that. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. I see the next hand that we have raised is Ashley Turner. If you want to go ahead and unmute and make your comments or ask your questions. Ashley, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on for now. I do see that we do have one conference call in number as well on the list, a 8283. And since that you don't have access to the chat and can't see the screens that we're showing here, I wanted to give you a chance to make a comment or ask a question as well. So whoever called in with the number 8283, if you go ahead and unmute with *6 if you haven't already, and make a comment or ask a question.
Did you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Sorry,
yes.
I was on the audio and then joined the Teams. I'm sorry. This is Ashley Turner. I just had a question.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
when I joined the meeting, I'm sorry about that. I think I recall someone stating that the on-street parking was going to remain and that there was going to be a bike lane on Davis Street. Is that correct? So the on-street parking that's already there is going to stay? Is that correct? I just want to make sure I didn't hear incorrectly.
Ma'am, this is Chris Turner Noteware. The staff's proposed recommendations between Cockrell Hill and Mary Cliff is to have on-street bike lanes and 2 driving lanes, but no on-street parking. And the staff recommendation between Mary Cliff and Clinton is to have parking on one side and to take the bike lane and the proposed bikes to 7th Street.
Okay, so I'm on West Davis at 424 West Davis. So the on-street parking now, are they moving the side of the street it's on, or will it remain on the same side that it's on now?
That part will have to be worked out as we are doing the final design, those type of final design details.
I see. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
For your, yes,
You're very
thank
welcome,
you for
ma'am.
your questions. Barbara, I see you do have your hand raised again. So if you would like to go ahead and unmute and ask any follow-up questions or make your comments.
No, I just had that one question. I apologize. Thank you for that.
Oh, no, sorry. I was addressing Barbara, one of the other guests on the call. But thank you, appreciate it.
Ms. Barbie, did you have an additional question, ma'am? Or comment?
Alrighty, well with, oh, I see another one just popped up here. Has public transit been considered along Davis? Would these designs still allow for public transit right-of-ways? It's a question asked by Eric.
Yes, we are aware that Davis Street is a public transit route, and we will coordinate with DART accordingly to make sure that we take into account their bus stops and what they need for their pullouts and things like that.
Thank you for your question, Eric. And I'm still looking here with no additional questions or hand raise. I guess we can go ahead and close out the meeting if you would like to, Chris.
I'd like to ask Dr. Garcia if she would like to make any closing comments.
Well, I just want to thank the city of Dallas and obviously the public work departments, Chris, everyone in this call. Thank you for, guiding us through these staff proposed recommendations. Remember, for everyone in the call, we will be taking questions if you have any additional comments. I know for me, sometimes they happen at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to do it anyway. So be sure, Chris, to put in the screen where can our constituents go ahead and make additional comments, additional recommendations. Please, your input is extremely important. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to Councilmember West. And we look forward to the next step, which is going to be another town hall meeting pretty soon, Ms. Turner.
Yes, basically we will get the public input, and Hytham, if you could go up to the screen that has the QR code and the link to the survey. So anyone that wants to hit that, I think it's about 3 slides up. There you go. So if anyone wants to hit that QR code while we're still on the call, they can do that. But basically our next steps, we'll finalize our recommendations and our phasing plan, utilizing the input from this meeting. We will come back out and tell the public exactly what those recommendations are and what our phasing plan is. And as I mentioned, we will then amend the thoroughfare plan, and then we will start with our design and engineering.
Thank you so much, Ms. Turner. And of course, Mr. Beckham, we will be sure that the PDs are coordinated with the input and I know that 830 was passed in 2010, so we will be sure to coordinate all the information to be sure, as you say, and correctly so, that every single PD, and we have many of them in Oak Cliff, have the right input from that work. Thank you, Ms. Barbie and Ms. Turner, for your insights. And with that, thank you again to everyone that is joining us today. Hope to see you in our next meeting in person soon. And thank you all.
And I would just like to thank Dr. Garcia for helping to sponsor our meeting tonight since Councilman West was not able to be here. So thank you, ma'am, so much.
Long time coming. I'm glad to see this project moving forward.
All right, with that, we will go ahead and end tonight's meeting. Thank you all for attending. We appreciate it very much. And we look forward to your input. Yeah, sorry, Hytham, I should